you prepared to cross the floor on this?
I've never threatened to cross the floor in my life, and
Come
I'm not
on,
starting
this one,
now.
you must be...
Well, that might seem plain enough to you, but not to news.com.au.
Simon Crean prepared to cross the floor on Labor's superannuation tax changes.
Welcome to Media Watch. I'm Jonathan Holmes. And first tonight, let's ponder the significance of quotation marks. You might think that that headline to Lani Scar's story on news.com.au was a flat-out mistake by the subs. After all, as Ms Scar reported in her story, Simon Crean didn't say he was prepared to vote with the opposition on the government's proposed superannuation changes. On the contrary, he said this:
I have never threatened to cross the floor in my life, and I am not starting now.
But Ms Scar reckoned that was Polly speak, and to be fair, she wasn't alone. Mr Crean said he wouldn't threaten to cross the floor, but at the same time, he didn't deny that he might. Here's how that exchange between Simon Crean and the Today programme's Carl Stefanovic continued.
You must be prepared to do something like that if it's that important to you and the nation.
I am prepared to do whatever I can to make common sense prevail. There's a whole caucus process to go through. I think this argument about crossing floors, these were words that a journalist just like you tried to put in my mouth.
But if it comes to it, you're saying you're prepared to do whatever it takes, you'll cross the floor.
This has to be fought, Carl, and it has to be fought on two fundamental grounds.
Lani Scar and others reasoned that Crean had the opportunity to answer that last question definitively and didn't take it. Her lead par was this:
Dumped Cabinet Minister Simon Crean has signalled he could be prepared to cross the floor on superannuation changes, saying he will do whatever I can to stop any retrospective measures coming into place.
And it was a phrase from that paragraph, the reporter's view of what Simon Crean had signalled but not said, that ended up in quote marks in the headline. But here's the sub-editor's get-out. Everything that Mr Crean did actually say appeared in the story inside double quotation marks. For example,
whatever I can.
And
the sooner they spell it out, the better for all of us.
But in the headline,
prepared to cross the floor,
is in single quotation marks. And that apparently makes a big difference. In a recent adjudication, the Australian Press Council upheld a complaint about this headline published in the Australian Online in June last year.
Europe won't be lectured by Julia Gillard, EC Chief José Manuel Barroso has said.
The Press Council pointed out that Mr Barroso, the President of the European Commission, had not used the word lectured or mentioned Julia Gillard in his press conference at the G20 summit in Mexico. The Council, in its adjudication, wrote this:
the headline of the article put lectured in single inverted commas, which is often used by newspapers to imply a paraphrase rather than a quotation. This usage is by no means standard, however.
Now, you might not even be aware of the significance of single quotation marks, but as soon as you start looking, you see them everywhere, in print and online. Often they do indicate a fair paraphrase of a quotation in the story.
Holden won't guarantee jobs.
Mike Devereaux of Holden actually said that guaranteeing jobs was
quite a difficult thing to do.
And
there are no guarantees in life.
Notice the double quotation marks for the actual quotes. An example from Fairfax's Sydney Sun Herald 8 days ago.
Drug companies put profits over lives.
A fair summary of a quote in the story from the author of an academic paper. But sometimes those single quotes mean other things. Here they indicate a claim that the news story is trying to debunk.
Records prove independent Sheikh was Labor member.
And in this Sydney Morning Herald front page, they're used to hint that the headline writer has sexed up a quote.
Revealed Obeid's grand plan for Torbay as Premier.
The former chairman of News Limited, John Hartigan, told the Herald that installing independent MP Richard Torbay as Premier of New South Wales
was Eddie Obeid's plan.
The words grand plan appear nowhere in the story. If that's a bit dodgy, using single quotation marks to highlight a reporter's interpretation of something that's not been said is worse. But that's what happened in the headline we started with.
Simon Crean prepared to cross the floor.
That's not a paraphrase of anything Simon Crean said. In fact, he said the opposite. And the executive editor of News Limited Network agrees. He writes,
"The use of single quotation marks should only be applied to convey paraphrase, while double quotation marks should be used for direct quotes. The use of single quotation marks in the Simon Crean headline was a mistake, and we have reminded staff of our journalistic practice in this regard."
Well, that's good. But you have been warned. There's one thing that single quote marks in a headline almost never mean: that anyone has actually said the precise words they enclose. And you should be on your guard too when a press gallery journalist gets an early drop on an important policy announcement. For example,
"Exclusive. NBN at half Labour's price. Simon Benson."
That was the front page in early editions of last Tuesday's Daily Telegraph. The story detailed the coalition's NBN policy, which everyone else got at a press conference that morning.
The coalition has vowed to deliver the NBN at half the cost, up to 6 years earlier, and with same-speed internet at $300 a year cheaper for the majority of Australians.
The telly story repeated that same-speed claim several times. But most experts say that fibre to the node simply can't deliver the same speeds to most households as the government's more expensive fibre to the home rollout. Not a word about that in the story. Alongside it was this graphic.
The choice at a glance.
The table lists coalition claims for its system as simple facts.
Required funding, $29.5 billion.
But adds a worst-case scenario rider to the government's official figures.
Promised, $44.1 billion. Likely, $94 billion.
That's not surprising because the graphic is lifted directly from
the coalition's plan for fast broadband and an affordable NBN.
Mind you, if you looked closely enough at the telly's version, you would have spotted this.
Source, coalition document.
But back to that $94 billion figure. Just the day before, Simon Benson had had another exclusive.
90 billion nightmare.
True cost of Labour's information revolution.
There are those single quotation marks again. True, according to whom? Well,
according to a new analysis contained in the coalition's broadband policy.
Of course. And was the relevant minister asked to counter the claim? No, he wasn't, and he was ropeable.
And the Daily Telegraph did not even seek comment from my office about these claims of $90 billion.
Well, late that same night, Simon Benson did seek comment from the minister's office about the overall coalition plan which he was about to reveal the next morning. He tells Media Watch,
"I left a message with his media advisor. My call was not returned. This opportunity afforded to Senator Conroy was one that his government regularly denies reporters, when the government seeks to have its own policies reported in newspapers."
The fact is, both parties do it all the time. Give journalists advance copies of important policies and reports under embargo. Most reporters take that to mean that they can't seek critical comment before they publish. Just last Thursday, there was another example, though it was far from an exclusive drop. News Limited had the story.
The need for speed. Melburnians could travel to central Sydney in less than 3 hours on a proposed East Coast high-speed rail link, a study has found.
Fairfax papers ran it.
High-speed rail link would be viable.
High-speed train built in 2 decades.
APN papers ran it.
Fast-track plan for 2-hour train travel to Sydney.
Almost all the stories on the government's high-speed rail report, published last Thursday morning, included a quote from the Minister Anthony Albanese, but none from the opposition. Simon Benson tells us that he specifically asked the Minister's office if he could include an opposition comment and was told no. He then wrote this pointed par in his story.
The Daily Telegraph did not seek comment from the coalition on the report, according to a strict condition of the government releasing the report.
But curiously, one reporter broke ranks. Paul Cleary of The Australian included this.
Opposition Transport spokesman Warren Truss said Australians will be asking whether $100 billion plus high-speed rail network is destined to be yet another Labor-wide elephant.
Paul Cleary has told Media Watch that, in his view, the midnight embargo on the report
prevent me from asking the opposition for a general comment on the merits of high-speed rail. I'm unaware of any unwritten rule about not seeking third-party comment on such drops. It should go without saying that comment from the other side is essential in political stories.
We'll be posting Paul Cleary's and Simon Benson's full responses on our website. It seems this is another of those complex games that politicians and reporters play, games whose rules the rest of us, most of the time, can only guess at. Well, whether or not we ever get high-speed rail, most of us will still drive cars and have to park them, which made this a good yarn for the Wagga Wagga Daily Advertiser.
Park in lines or get fined. Parking your car with pinpoint accuracy can often be a difficult task, but drivers across the city are being urged to take a few extra seconds to make sure they get it just right.
The Daily Advertiser, known to its readers as the DA, didn't actually say that Wagga resident Joy Kelly shouldn't have been fined $99 for sloppy parking. It did show a picture of her and her car, with its rear bumper just centimetres across the line. But as the accompanying story noted, Mrs. Kelly
wasn't sure just how far over it was, because she first noticed the ticket after arriving home 2 hours later.
So presumably that picture was a reconstruction of the way Mrs. Kelly thought her car might have been parked. And yet the DA knew perfectly well before it went to press that her memory was, well, not pinpoint accurate. Because just after 4 p.m. the day before, the City Council had sent them this email.
I have also attached a photo of the car, so you can understand why the infringement was issued.
And here's the Council's photograph. Bit different, isn't it? When the story appeared next morning, headed by the newspaper's picture, the Council posted its photograph on Twitter.
Here's the pic Daily Advertiser didn't print.
At that point, the DA posted the Council's photo online, but its own misleading picture still led its online story. You had to click through to the Council's picture. Why didn't the Advertiser print this in the paper? The editor chose not to respond to our questions. Well, nobody's perfect, even Media Watch. 2 weeks ago, we had a good old go at Win News in North Queensland for the terrible quality of its name supers.
Magdalena Blackie, Bwgcolman Aboriginal Arts.
Her name is Magdalena Blackley. But Win did get one thing right in that caption, and we got it wrong. This word isn't the name of a commercial sponsor of the Aboriginal Arts Festival called Bwgcolman. It's an Aboriginal word pronounced Bwgcolman. The Mayor of Palm Island, Alf Lacey, told Media Watch,
It means all one, and is the name given by the traditional owners to the residents of Palm Island and their descendants.
We apologise to the Bwgcolman people. Next week, a special programme. We'll be looking at how politicians are using social media to bypass the press gallery and get their message directly to voters. Until then, good night.